It means it's like a whole day of work.
In my Riverford box, got some, I think that's parsley, I'm not sure exactly. Carrots, potatoes, steak, and a bit of pork, onions, and then there's a load of vegetables there too as well. So they're all locally produced. Okay, so I'm just going to take you through some of the advantages and disadvantages of a globalised food supply. Now, some of these will be obvious to you actually, but as I'm talking again, just try and jot down a few things, and we'll look at it again when we get back to class. So, I suppose the big advantages of a globalised food supply are the fact that, firstly, it gives people in the developed world, those people who are buying the products in the supermarkets that are grown overseas in less developed countries, it gives us a fantastic range of products to buy all year round. I think all year round is the crucial thing here, because the climate in the UK is of course conducive to growing large amounts of fruit and vegetables, but most of those things are only available during the summer months. There are of course other sorts of winter veg, but perhaps our diet would be a lot more bland if we didn't rely upon things that have been grown elsewhere in the world. The other big advantage, of course, is supplying employment to people who are living in the developing world, which gives them money, and it gives the people work, and it gives the people skills, importantly as well, to be able to allow the development process to continue. Often, countries in the developing world grow things which are called cash crops. Cash crops, okay, I'll just perhaps write a definition of that for you. There we go. So cash crops are high value, high yield agricultural produce. They're so called because they give you lots of money. And countries in certain parts of the world will tend to focus on these so they can become highly specialised in producing them and produce high amounts of them at one time. So these sorts of things that we're talking about are coffee, cocoa, perhaps types of wheat, types of maize, things like that, tobacco as well, which can really allow for a lot of money to be made. Of course, all the time we need to think about this in terms of economic development, and when we talk about economic development and the injection of funds, we also need to think about the multiplier effect. So it's not just the people who are getting the wages, and it's not just the people who are, if you like, getting paid, by Sainsbury's or Waitrose for this that are benefiting, but there's multiplier effects when money cycles around the economy. Right. So now for some of the disadvantages associated with the globalisation of food supply. So the first thing, in the top left-hand corner there, you can see this little funny little advert, I guess, which is quite amusing. It says, do you know where your dinner was last night? So, there's a thought, of course, that people might not like the idea that their food has to travel a long way. And part of that is the fact that if your food has come a long way, it has a carbon footprint associated with it. So there's that first thing, is the carbon footprint associated with transporting of food. The second thing then to look at here is this point. So when we're talking about growing of cash crops, one of the things, one of the sort of obvious consequences, if you like, is that a country will want to grow as much of that food as they possibly can, so that they can get as much money as they possibly can. However, problems occur if you over-farm land. It leads to what's called environmental degradation. So if you're over-farming a piece of land, you're extracting too many of the nutrients from that land, so it's no longer productive. Then what tends to happen is, if it becomes less productive and the vegetation on it dies, then what happens in hot environments, in arid environments where it's very, very windy, the vegetation that binds that soil together is no longer there, so you get large amounts of wind erosion. So the soil gets removed, and it leads to a process which is called desertification. Then down here, if we have a look here, this is perhaps a slightly less obvious point to make. However, this is a picture of some coffee beans. Coffee beans are green. You probably think they might be brown or almost black colour, but they are green when they're first grown. And what problems occur is if the crop fails. So the crop could fail for all sorts of reasons, like drought or floods. But this little example here shows some coffee beans that have been infested with a parasite, which is causing the coffee bean quality to decrease enormously. So, if you're a country which is producing lots of coffee and then suddenly you have this parasite which spreads throughout the country and then you're not producing as much coffee or the quality of the coffee goes right down, in that year, or maybe a couple of years, depending upon how long it persists, the whole national income is going to decrease significantly. Okay, this is a problem which is associated with what we call primary product dependency. I might just jot a little definition of that down for you. Okay. Bit of a struggle to get that up, but there it is. Primary product dependency. So this is the over-reliance on a single item in a country's economy. When failure occurs, it has very serious impacts. So, yeah, once again, if a country relies too heavily on one thing, then if a problem happens, like a drought or flood or something, then the whole economy has a very, very serious knock-on effect. You think about the UK economy, by example, we have quite a diverse economy. Yes, we do have some primary products. We do, some primary employment. We do have some secondary employment. We do have lots and lots of service employment, but our service base is quite diverse. Whereas some countries in the developing world might only focus upon, production of coffee or tea or chocolate, things like that. Okay, and the final thing to think about is this idea of water wars. Okay, so agriculture production is very, very closely related to water. For any type of food, you're going to need a lot of water to grow it or to feed the animals with it. Now, water is a very precious resource, and it comes from rivers, as you know. We're talking about fresh water here. And what can happen is that where rivers cross borders between countries, certain countries upriver may decide to extract an awful lot of water from that river, too much water from that river, so that countries further down may suffer. So, for example, you can think about a country that upstream, somewhere like Israel, which has a developing population with economic development is high, and there's lots of food production going on there. Well, it's also a very, very a hot part of the world, an arid environment, and for the production of their food there, to assist it, they've built lots of irrigation systems, and to do so, they've had to dam the river. Now, the damming of the river has meant, and the extraction of the water for the irrigation, has meant for countries downstream, like Jordan, that they have less water to be able to use. So you can see that there's a big conflict which arises there. That conflict can, in cases, lead to actual fighting as well. So there's a few problems associated with the globalisation of food supply.